The suspension system plays an important role in ensuring riding comfort and the vehicle's driving stability. But riding comfort and driving stability are not only affected by the suspension system, they are closely related to other elements of the driving system, such as the tires and the steering system. So it is important in inspection and maintenance of the suspension system to understand how these systems relate to each other. Let's take a look at how to inspect and maintain the suspension system. This video introduction to suspension systems is in two parts. Basic knowledge is the first, and inspection and maintenance is the second. The second video describes suspension system troubleshooting, inspection and maintenance of the shock absorbers and ball joints, and replacement of the bushings. When a problem arises in the suspension system, it usually leads to a loss of riding comfort and driving stability. Specifically, a loss of stability while driving straight. Increases in bottoming, pitching, rolling, bouncing, and yawing when going over irregularities in the road surface, as well as abnormal vibration and noise during driving. But the presence of these problems doesn't necessarily mean that there is something wrong with the suspension system. That is because riding comfort and driving stability are closely related to various systems, from driving systems such as the tires to wheel alignment and the steering system. For this reason, the problem needs to be examined from a general point of view, based on a knowledge of the ways in which the systems interact. Now let's do some suspension system troubleshooting. First, park the vehicle on a level area. Check the vehicle's height and make sure the springs aren't worn out. Then shake the vehicle and check that the shock absorbers have not lost damping force. The left and right shock absorbers are even, and that there are no abnormal noises. Jack up the vehicle and see that components of the suspension system, such as suspension arms, springs, and shock absorbers, are not bent or damaged. You can find most faults this way. Be particularly careful to check fluid leakage from the shock absorbers. Then pry each part with a tire lever. Check the condition of the bushings and confirm that there is no extrusion or deformation and that connecting sections are not loose. Pry the wheel bearings and ball joints with the tire lever and check the play. Now let's have a look at the inspection and maintenance of shock absorbers, using the McPherson strut-type suspension as an example. First, remove the front shock absorber assembly. Remove the brake hose from the shock absorber's bracket. Then remove the brake caliper. Hang the removed caliper with wire to avoid stressing the brake hose. Next, remove the shock absorber and the coil spring together. Cover the drive shaft boot with a cloth to avoid damaging it, and loosen the two nuts holding the base of the shock absorber. Remove the three nuts holding the top of the suspension support. Then remove the two bolts loosened earlier. And remove the shock absorber and the coil spring as a unit from the body. Fix a suitable length of bolt and two nuts to the bracket of the removed shock absorber and coil spring and secure it in a vise. After securing, use an SST like this to compress the coil spring. Widen the upper and lower arms of the SST as much as possible and fix the SST to the spring. Then compress the spring until it can be moved freely. Remove the dust cover. Using the SST, hold the spring seat so that it will not turn and remove the nut. Remove the suspension support, dust seal, spring seat, upper insulator, spring, spring bumper, and lower insulator in this order. Now, go on to inspection of a shock absorber. Push the piston rod in. Then pull it back out and check that the pull throughout its stroke is even and that there is no abnormal resistance or noise. Next, push in the piston rod fully and release it. For a gas-filled shock absorber, check that the force of the gas propels the piston rod back at a constant speed throughout its stroke. If the shock absorber does not operate properly upon inspection, replace it with a new one. Next, let's take a look at the installation of the shock absorber assembly. First, fix the lower insulator and spring bumper on the piston rod. Then fit the coil spring compressed with the SST. Make sure to align the coil spring end with the recess of the lower seat. Then fit the upper insulator and spring seat. The out mark on the spring seat should face the outer edge of the vehicle. Fix the dust seal, suspension support, and a new suspension nut. Using the SST, hold the spring so that it will not turn, and tighten down the suspension support nut. After greasing the suspension support bearing section, fix the dust cover. Loosen and remove the SST which was compressing the spring. The next step is to fix the shock absorber to the body. First, secure the 3 bolts of the suspension support with nuts. Then secure the lower part of the shock absorber. Be careful not to damage the drive shaft boot. After the shock absorber has been fixed to the body, install the brake caliper. Run the brake hose through the bracket. This completes the installation of the shock absorber. Next, check the wheel alignment. Usually, today, when repairing a shock absorber, the assembly or cartridge is replaced with a new one. So let's take a look at how to replace the cartridge. Secure the shock absorber. Using the SST, loosen the ring nut. pull out the piston rod. Dispose of the old fluid completely. Secure the shock absorber again and insert a new cartridge. Tighten down the ring nut with the SST. At this time, be sure to use a new ring nut instead of the old one. That completes the replacement of the cartridge. It is dangerous to simply throw away a gas-filled shock absorber after removal. The gas must be released first. Let's take a look at the disposal method. The safest method is to put the shock absorber in a vinyl bag and make a hole in the bag to insert the drill bit. Then use a punch to mark the center of the cylinder and drill a 2 to 3 millimeter hole. Metal shavings may fly out during drilling, so work carefully. In this way, release the gas completely before disposing of the shock absorber. The inspection and maintenance of the lower ball joint begins with the removal of the ball joint. Remove the cotter pin and then the lock nut cap. With a second person stepping on the brake pedal to prevent the drive shaft from turning, remove the drive shaft lock nut. Remove the brake caliper together with its mount. After removing the disc, loosen the nut which secures the shock absorber and steering knuckle. Remove the cotter pin and nut before removing the tie rod end from the steering knuckle. Remove the tie rod end with the SST. Then remove the 2 nuts and 1 bolt which connect the lower suspension and ball joint. Stick a piece of vinyl tape at the end of the drive shaft to prevent damage to the hub oil seal. Remove the steering knuckle, axle hub, and ball joint as one unit. When removing the ball joint from the steering knuckle, remove the cotter pin and nut first. Then remove the ball joint with the SST. For inspection, clamp the ball joint in a vise. Move it 4 or 5 times, like this, and check that it moves smoothly. Then fix the nut. Using a torque wrench, make 1 turn every 2 to 4 seconds. Take a torque reading while turning and confirm that it is within the specification. Fix the ball joint to the steering knuckle first and tighten the nut with the specified torque. Then insert a new cotter pin. Install the steering knuckle, axle hub, and ball joint as one unit on the drive shaft. At this point, insert the bolt connecting the steering knuckle and shock absorber and secure it temporarily. Then fit the ball joint on the lower suspension arm. Secure the tie rod end. After tightening the nut, insert a new cotter pin. Then tighten the bolt and nut which were temporarily secured earlier and secure the steering knuckle and shock absorber. Place the disc and secure the brake caliper. With a second person, again stepping on the brake pedal, secure the disc. Then tighten the drive shaft lock nut with the specified torque. Fix the lock nut cap and insert the cotter pin. Then install the brake hose. That completes the installation of the ball joint. Now examine the wheel alignment. After disassembling the suspension, be sure to confirm that the wheels are not out of alignment. Rubber bushings are used for the parts fitted to the suspension arm and stabilizer. In recent models, the parts are supplied with the bushings pre-mounted, so it is rare now to replace only the bushings. Let's take a look at how to do it anyway. Use an SST like this to replace the bushing. First, place the SST and suspension arm in a press and remove the old bushing. Now, insert a new bushing. Place the bushing correctly and apply pressure with the press to insert the bushing gradually. After you have finished, make sure the bushing is properly inserted. This video has described the inspection and maintenance of the suspension system, mainly using a Corolla as an example. There are various types of suspension, and of course inspection and maintenance methods vary from one type to another. For this reason, please follow the repair manual to carry out inspection and maintenance work for the correct type. The suspension system's performance affects not only riding comfort and steering stability, but also the safety of the vehicle. So after disassembling and repairing the suspension system, always be sure to check the wheel alignment.